Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a grammar traffic jam when you're trying to speak English?
Oh, yeah.
You know, meticulously crafting each sentence while the conversation speeds past you?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we are diving into this common struggle.
Right.
Speed versus accuracy in English fluency.
Okay.
And I've got some fascinating insights from a podcast episode ready to unpack.
Right.
You won't believe this,
Okay.
but research suggests that finding the right balance can actually boost your progress by 25%.
Wow. 25%.
Ready to shift gears?
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Okay, great.
What's fascinating here
Yeah.
is that this dilemma,
Yeah.
it isn't unique to language.
Okay.
Think about cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need to whip up a quick meal.
Right.
Other times a gourmet feast requires precision.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what the situation calls for.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
And the podcast really dives into the when to prioritize each.
Okay.
They start by making a case for speed, arguing that fluency builds confidence and makes communication feel more natural.
Yeah, I could see that.
They even paint this hilarious picture of being in a crowded restaurant,
Yeah.
starving and just needing to blurt out pizza to the waiter.
Yeah.
Forget about perfect grammar at that point.
Forget about it. You just need to eat.
You just need to eat.
Right.
Right.
It highlights a crucial point.
Yeah.
Communication is about conveying meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means prioritizing speed
Right.
over flawless grammar,
Okay.
especially in casual settings.
Yeah.
The podcast shares a story about a student named Maria
Okay.
who was so focused on getting her grammar perfect
Mm-hmm.
that she could barely hold a conversation.
Oh, wow.
She was terrified of making mistakes.
I see.
But then she discovered an app that flipped the script.
Okay, tell me more about this app.
Yeah.
What was so special about it?
It emphasized repetition and rapid-fire responses,
Okay.
almost like a language learning game.
Interesting.
Maria was encouraged to speak without overthinking.
Okay.
And you know what?
Huh.
She started having actual conversations,
Really?
making friends.
Wow.
And her confidence skyrocketed.
That's amazing.
The app's focus.
Yeah.
It wasn't on eliminating errors entirely,
Okay.
but on building fluency first.
So it's like,
It's like learning to dance.
yeah.
You don't start by obsessing over every foot placement.
Right.
You just get moving to the music.
I love that.
Right.
It's about capturing that natural flow
Yeah.
and building from there.
Exactly.
But I can already hear some listeners thinking, hold on, isn't grammar important?
Yeah.
And the podcast doesn't shy away from that either.
Okay.
They make a strong point about accuracy being crucial in formal settings, like
Right.
job interviews or exams.
Right.
Imagine you're in a job interview
Okay.
and you say, I'm good at teamwork.
Hmm.
Whew.
Yeah.
The meaning is there,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't land the same way
No. It doesn't.
as a grammatically correct sentence.
It really doesn't.
It's almost like wearing a wrinkled suit to an important meeting.
Oh, yeah.
You might have great ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but the first impression isn't doing you any favors.
Not at all.
The podcast even shares a story about a student named Ahmed,
Okay.
who was super fluent,
Uh-huh.
but bombed a crucial English test because of grammatical errors.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ahmed's story is a good example
Yeah.
of how neglecting accuracy can backfire,
Mm-hmm.
especially in situations
Yeah.
where precise language is expected.
Yeah.
He realized that while fluency was important,
Yeah.
it wasn't enough.
I see.
He needed to buckle down and focus on those grammar rules he'd been brushing aside.
So did he just crack open a grammar book and start memorizing rules?
Yeah.
What did this targeted practice actually look like for him?
It was much more strategic than that.
Okay.
He started by analyzing his test,
Mm-hmm.
identifying the specific grammar areas where he was losing points.
I see.
Then he focused his practice on those weak spots,
Uh-huh.
using online quizzes and exercises tailored to those specific rules.
Gotcha.
He wasn't trying to learn everything at once,
Right.
just mastering one concept at a time.
That's a really smart approach.
Yeah,
It's like focusing your workout on specific muscle groups
exactly.
instead of trying to do every exercise at once.
Yeah.
So we've got speed for building confidence and fluency in everyday situations
Mhm.
and accuracy for those moments when precision matters.
Right.
But how do we know when to prioritize which one?
Yeah, that's the question.
The podcast's answer is pretty intriguing.
Okay.
It depends on you.
It depends on you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Oh.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
It's about understanding your personal goals
Ugh.
and the context in which you'll be using English.
Yeah.
Are you preparing for a big presentation at work?
Okay.
Accuracy is your best friend.
Accuracy it is.
Trying to navigate a bustling market in a foreign country,
Okay.
speed will be your superpower.
Speed it is.
So if you're picturing a Venn diagram,
Uh-huh.
there's this sweet spot in the middle where speed and accuracy overlap,
I see.
but the size of each circle changes depending on your personal context.
Okay.
Like if I'm dreaming of having casual chats with locals in Italy,
Yeah.
maybe my speed circle needs to be a bit bigger
Right.
at this point in my learning journey.
Exactly. It's about adapting your approach
Yeah.
based on your individual needs and aspirations.
Mhm.
And what's encouraging is that the podcast features a student named Emma
Okay.
who mastered this balancing act.
Oh, tell me more about Emma.
Okay.
What was her secret?
She took a really balanced approach
Uh-huh.
using different techniques to develop both fluency and accuracy.
Okay.
She joined a conversation group
Right.
for practicing casual chats
Yeah.
and getting comfortable with making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But she also started journaling in English every day,
Oh, wow.
focusing on grammar and expressing yourself clearly in writing.
So she essentially created a personalized language gym routine,
Yeah,
working out different skill sets to achieve her goals.
I like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the podcast goes even further
What?
by offering specific exercises for both speed and accuracy.
Oh, cool.
Okay, I'm ready to hear them.
All right.
Let's break down these exercises
Yep.
and see what we can add to our own language workout routines.
Sounds like a plan. Let's start with the speed boosting techniques.
Okay.
One of the most effective methods they suggest is shadowing. Welcome back. I hope you're ready for more on this speed versus accuracy balancing act. You know, we often focus on the mechanics of language,
Yeah.
like grammar rules, vocabulary lists,
Mm-hmm.
but we sometimes forget about the bigger picture,
Okay.
communication.
That's so true. It's like learning all the notes on a piano but never actually playing a song.
Right.
So how does speed and accuracy fit into this bigger picture of effective communication?
Think about it this way.
Okay.
The goal of language isn't just to avoid mistakes. It's to connect with others,
Right.
share ideas, and get things done in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means prioritizing one over the other.
Okay, give me an example. When would speed be the MVP of communication,
Yeah.
even if it means sacrificing a bit of grammatical perfection?
Imagine you're traveling
Okay.
and need to ask for directions.
Uh-huh.
You're lost, maybe a little flustered, and just need to get to the train station before your train leaves.
Yeah.
In that moment, speed is your best friend.
Oh, I can totally relate to that. I've been in situations where I've fumbled with my phrase book,
Yeah.
trying to construct the perfect sentence,
You're like,
while the locals are looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language.
exactly.
Which I guess I was.
And in those situations, a quick train station, please.
Yeah.
Accompanied by some frantic pointing will get you much further
Right.
than agonizing over verb conjugation.
Absolutely.
You've achieved your goal,
Right.
understanding how to get where you need to go.
So in that scenario, accuracy takes a back seat to the urgency of the situation.
Yeah.
It's about getting the message across quickly and clearly, even if it's a little rough around the edges.
Right.
But I'm guessing there are also times when accuracy becomes the star player, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Think about situations where precision and clarity are non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Giving a presentation at work,
Okay.
writing a foreign email, or having a serious conversation about a sensitive topic.
Right.
These are moments where accuracy reigns supreme.
I see what I mean. Like, imagine trying to explain a complex technical problem
Yeah.
using incorrect terminology or sloppy grammar.
Oh, yeah.
It would be a recipe for disaster.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In those situations, accuracy isn't just about sounding intelligent.
Right.
It's about ensuring that your message is understood correctly
Mm.
and that there's no room for misinterpretations.
Yeah.
It's about building trust and credibility with your audience.
This is reminding me of a time I had to give a presentation in English for a university class. I was so focused on speaking fluently and confidently that I kind of glossed over some of the more technical details. And you know what?
Huh.
My professor called me out on it.
Really?
She said, "I can tell you're enthusiastic,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure I fully understand the nuances of your argument."
Wow.
It was a humbling moment.
But a valuable one, right?
It was definitely a wake-up call.
It highlighted that even with fluency,
Yeah.
a lack of accuracy can undermine your message,
Mm-hmm.
especially when dealing with complex or nuanced topics.
So we've established that both speed and accuracy are important for effective communication,
Right.
but in different ways and in different situations.
Yeah.
Now, how do we actually measure our progress in both areas?
Yeah.
How do we know if we're getting better at this whole balancing act?
That's a great question, and one that the podcast also addresses.
Okay.
They suggest a simple yet powerful tool
Yeah.
that we've touched on before.
What is it?
Recording yourself.
Okay, you're talking about hitting that record button and hearing our own voices echoing back to us.
Huh.
I have to admit, it can be a little cringeworthy at first.
It can be, but it's also incredibly revealing.
Right?
You suddenly become aware of all those little filler words,
Yeah.
awkward pauses, and grammatical slip-ups that you might not even notice in the moment.
It's like watching yourself on video. You notice things you never would have otherwise.
Yeah.
But it's not just about catching errors, is it?
Exactly. It's about analyzing your overall communication style.
Okay.
Are you speaking clearly and confidently?
Uh-huh.
Are you using a variety of vocabulary and grammatical structures? Are you engaging with your listener?
Okay.
It's about becoming your own communication coach.
So by recording ourselves, we can get a more objective view of our strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
It's like having a language mirror that reflects not just our words, but also our tone, pace, and overall delivery.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And as you practice and listen back to those recordings,
Yeah.
you can start to adjust and refine those elements to become a more effective communicator in any situation.
This is making me think about all those athletes who watch videos of their performances to analyze their technique and identify areas for improvement.
Right.
We can apply that same principle to language learning.
Exactly. And just like athletes train specific muscle groups,
Yeah.
we can target our language practice to address the areas where we need the most work.
Okay, so let's say I've recorded myself giving a practice presentation.
Okay.
And notice that I tend to speak way too fast when I get nervous and my words start to jumble together.
Yeah.
What are some practical steps I can take to slow down and articulate more clearly?
There are some really effective techniques for that.
Okay, what are they?
The podcast suggests focusing on breathing and pacing.
Okay.
Imagine you're a news anchor delivering an important announcement.
Okay.
You want to speak clearly, enunciate each word, and pause for emphasis.
I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's about taking control of the rhythm of your speech and not letting your nerves dictate the pace.
Exactly. And there are some fun exercises you can try,
Like what?
like reading aloud with a metronome
Okay.
or practicing tongue twisters to improve articulation.
Interesting.
It's like giving your tongue a workout.
I love that. It's
well-
like taking your speed demon inner voice and teaching it to tap dance instead of running a marathon.
I like that.
But what about those of us who struggle with accuracy?
Yeah.
What kind of exercises can help us tighten up our grammar and expand our vocabulary?
Well, the podcast emphasizes the importance of targeting grammar practice.
Okay.
Instead of trying to memorize every grammar rule in the book,
Right.
focus on the areas where you tend to make the most mistakes.
Okay.
Think quality over quantity.
So it's about identifying those grammatical gremlins that keep tripping us up
Right.
and then devising a plan to conquer them one by one. I remember when I first started learning English, I was so confused by articles.
Articles, yeah.
And it felt like a complete mystery.
Articles are definitely a common stumbling block for English learners.
Yeah.
But the good news is that there are tons of resources available,
Okay.
from grammar books and websites to online quizzes and interactive exercises that can help you demystify those tricky little words.
So there's hope.
There is. And sometimes simply noticing how articles are used in real-life contexts,
Yeah.
in books, movies, conversations,
Right.
can be incredibly helpful.
Like becoming a grammar detective looking for clues and patterns in the way native speakers use the language.
Exactly. And once you start paying attention,
Yeah.
you realize that there's a logic behind it all.
And the same principle applies to vocabulary. Instead of
Yes.
trying to memorize a dictionary,
Right.
focus on learning words and phrases that are relevant to your interests and goals.
Uh-huh.
If you're passionate about cooking, immerse yourself in cookbooks and food blogs.
Right.
If you're a film buff, watch movies and pay attention to the dialogue.
Yeah.
So it's about making language learning a part of your everyday life, not just confining it to textbooks and grammar drills.
Precisely. The more you integrate English into your daily routine, the more naturally those words and grammar rules will start to stick,
Right.
and the more fun you'll have along the way.
Okay, so we've got targeted exercises for speed and accuracy.
Yeah.
But how do we actually integrate these skills into our everyday communication?
Right.
It's one thing to practice in isolation,
Yeah.
but how do we bridge the gap between practice and real-world conversations?
That's where the concept of code switching comes in.
Code switching.
It's about adapting your language style, depending on the situation.
Okay.
like a chameleon blending into its surroundings.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right.
So we wouldn't use the same level of formality when talking to our boss
Right.
as we would when chatting with friends at a party.
Exactly. It's about reading the room
Yeah,
and adjusting your communication style accordingly.
right.
And the same principle applies to speed and accuracy. In casual conversations, you can relax a bit,
Uh-huh.
prioritize fluency,
Yeah.
and even embrace a few slang terms or colloquialisms.
Okay.
But in more formal settings, you'll want to dial up the accuracy.
Right.
Choose your words carefully,
Hmm.
and make sure your grammar is on point.
So it's like having two different communication wardrobes.
Yeah.
One that's more casual and comfortable,
Right.
and one that's more polished and professional.
Exactly.
And the key is to know which outfit to wear, depending on the occasion.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
Yeah.
And as you become more fluent and confident in English,
Yeah.
you'll find that code switching becomes more intuitive.
Really?
You'll naturally adjust your language style without even thinking about it,
Wow.
like a jazz musician
Yeah.
who effortlessly improvises within the structure of a song.
I'm starting to realize that becoming fluent in English isn't just about reaching a certain level of proficiency.
Yeah.
It's about developing a sense of adaptability and flexibility as a communicator. It's about being able to navigate different social and professional situations with confidence and grace.
That's beautifully said. And that adaptability is what makes you a more effective and engaging communicator.
Wow.
It allows you to connect with people on their level
Yeah.
and share your ideas in a way that resonates with them.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to language learning.
Great.
It's not just about accumulating knowledge.
Right.
It's about becoming a more versatile and adaptable communicator.
Exactly.
It's about expanding my repertoire of expressions and being able to switch between them seamlessly.
That's the spirit.
Mm.
And as you continue on your English learning journey,
Yeah.
remember to embrace those challenges. Celebrate those small victories, and most importantly,
Yeah.
enjoy the process.
I'm definitely feeling inspired. I'm already thinking about all the different ways I can apply these ideas to my own English practice.
That's great.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on one more thing. We've talked a lot about the technical aspects of language learning, but what about the emotional side of things?
Right.
How do factors like confidence, motivation, and even fear play into this whole equation?
That's a great question, and one that's often overlooked in language learning.
Yeah.
After all, it's not just about mastering grammar rules and vocabulary.
Right.
It's about navigating a whole range of emotions.
Right.
And those emotions can have a huge impact on our progress,
Okay.
especially when it comes to this delicate dance between speed and accuracy.
You know, we've been talking about finding that sweet spot between speed and accuracy,
Right.
but I think there's another layer to this whole equation.
Okay.
The emotional side of language learning. I'm talking about those moments when fear creeps in,
Right.
or your motivation takes a nosedive,
Yeah.
or you just feel plain stuck.
Mm-hmm.
How do we navigate those feelings
Yeah, that's a good question.
while we're trying to master this balancing act?
That's such a crucial point. Language learning isn't just about memorizing vocabulary and mastering grammar.
Right.
It's a deeply personal journey
Yeah.
that involves a whole spectrum of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And those emotions can either propel us forward or hold us back.
I know exactly what you mean. I remember when I first started practicing conversations in English,
Yeah.
I would get so nervous that my mind would go blank.
Oh, wow.
All those perfectly rehearsed sentences would just vanish. It
Really?
was like my brain had hit the pause button.
It's like stage fright, but for language learners.
Yeah.
And that fear of making mistakes
Mm.
can be paralyzing.
Right.
It makes us hesitant to speak,
Mhm.
afraid to experiment, and ultimately it prevents us from reaching our full potential.
I think a lot of listeners can relate to that feeling. It's like there's this inner critic constantly whispering, don't mess up, don't embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
But how do we silence that inner critic and
Right.
build up the confidence to actually speak, even if it's not perfect?
Well, first, we need to reframe our perspective on mistakes.
Okay, how do we do that?
The podcast makes a brilliant point.
Yeah.
Mistakes aren't failures. They're valuable feedback.
Okay.
They're the stepping stones on the path to fluency.
I love that. It's like those fail compilations you see online.
Right.
They're hilarious, but they also remind us that everyone messes up sometimes.
Yeah,
And it's often those mess-ups that lead to the greatest learning experiences.
exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it. How did we learn to walk?
We fell down a lot.
We stumbled, we felt we got back up and tried again.
Right.
And through that process of trial and error,
Yeah.
we eventually mastered the skill.
Okay.
Language learning is no different. Each mistake is an opportunity to adjust, refine, and improve.
So instead of viewing mistakes as setbacks, we should embrace them as opportunities for growth.
Exactly.
But that's easier said than done, right?
It is.
How do we actually shift our mindset to view mistakes as friends, not foes?
One strategy that the podcast highlights
Okay.
is to create a safe space for practice. Surround yourself with supportive people, language partners, tutors, or fellow learners
Right.
who understand that making mistakes is part of the process.
Yeah.
Find people who will encourage you to experiment,
Okay.
take risks, and have fun with the language.
That's such an important reminder. It's about finding your language cheer squad. Those people who will celebrate your successes and offer encouragement when you stumble.
Exactly.
It's about creating an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, knowing that you're not being judged or evaluated.
Exactly. And remember, even native speakers make mistakes.
Oh, that's true.
Language is a living, evolving thing, and nobody is perfect all the time.
Right.
The key is to not let the fear of making mistakes paralyze you.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with embracing those imperfections.
So we've talked about shifting our perspective on mistakes and creating a supportive environment for practice.
Right.
But what about motivation?
Okay.
How do we keep that fire burning, especially when the going gets tough?
That's where it's crucial to connect with your why.
My why.
Why are you learning English? What are your goals? What do you hope to achieve through this journey?
It's about remembering that bigger picture, right? Like, for me, one of my big whys for learning English is to be able to travel the world and connect with people from different cultures.
Okay.
Just imagining myself having those conversations, sharing stories, and experiencing those connections fuels my motivation to keep going.
That's a beautiful why.
Yeah.
And it's so important to keep those goals front and center, especially when you're feeling discouraged or overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Visualize yourself achieving those goals. Write them down. Create a vision board, whatever works for you.
It's like having a language learning mantra that you repeat to yourself when the going gets tough. And I think it's also helpful to break down those big, ambitious goals to smaller, more manageable steps.
Absolutely. Celebrating those small victories along the way can be a huge boost to your motivation.
Yeah.
Did you master a new grammar rule?
I did.
Did you have a successful conversation with a native speaker? Do a little victory dance.
Those small wins are like fuel for our language learning engines.
Yes.
They remind us that we're making progress, even if it's not always obvious.
Right.
And I think it's important to remember that learning a language is a journey, not a destination.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's not about reaching some mythical point of perfection.
Right.
It's about embracing the process of growth discovery and connection.
Yeah.
It's about opening ourselves up to new experiences and expanding our horizons.
This whole conversation has been such an eye-opener. It's made me realize that mastering the balance between speed and accuracy isn't just about technical skills. It's about cultivating a positive mindset, embracing mistakes as opportunities, and connecting with our deeper motivations for learning.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's about seeing language learning not as a chore or a test to be passed, but as an adventure to be savored. It's about discovering the joy of communication, the thrill of connection, and the endless possibilities that open up when we embrace the power of language.
So well said. And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
We've explored the technical strategies, the practical tips, and the emotional nuances of finding that sweet spot between speed and accuracy.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to each of us to find what works best for our individual learning styles and goals.
It's been an absolute pleasure diving into this topic with you.
Likewise.
And to all our listeners out there,
Yeah.
remember, the most important ingredient in language learning is your own passion and dedication.
Right.
Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those conversations flowing.
And most importantly, have fun along the way. Until next time, happy learning.